Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. This is going to be a juicy one, so let's just get stuck in. First up, what's changed? So, the latest alpha build has announced a new system for Torghast, the roguelike game within a game that is a major part of the Shadowlands expansion, and that for the most part, I think really is incredible and should be commended, because at its core, it is awesome. Now, this Torment system is a set of stacking debuffs that mounts up over time. They make you weaker, and they increase the more time you spend on a floor, then resetting when you move to a new floor. Now, this is basically a soft enrage within a floor. Now, this has got many players dissatisfied, as part of the point of Torghast, as communicated at BlizzCon, was that there would be no timer, right? No time pressure, and that you would be free to do it at your own pace. Of course, though, a soft enrage kind of is a timer, so if you want to take your packs slowly, or maybe explore around the floors of this roguelike to smash up some pots, find some secrets, then you've got to deal with a stacking debuff. Now, before we return to this topic, it is absolutely vital, though, that I explain how Torghast works right now, because what you've seen, what you've heard, has to be put in the correct context. Alpha right now is, not really a what you see is what you get situation. And also, this is not about Blizzard enforcing skill or anything like that, or making, torments there to make the game harder. They literally said in a blue post that their express goal is to stop players waiting for cooldowns and things like Bloodlust by applying pressure to them. So that's what's up, and this is what is also up, and you can get it. This is our Patreon special for this month. It is a concept piece for a game idea that our game studio has worked on. And who knows, you might even see it someday after our Antarctic exploration game releases. As to what it is, well, I'm going to be tight-lipped, but I'll just say, have a peek, and we're all very keen to see what you can deduce. So you'll get that print. You'll also get a pre-order for the Paladin pin. Here's the Shaman one to give you a bit of a look at the design, or just what they feel like, sort of. So that, and then of course, you'll also get the art pack with the sticker and the travel card and everything. And your support there has been incredible. We are doing all we can to bring more content to you, make the coolest loot that we can, stuff you're excited about. So that is this month's tier. Thank you for all of your support. And with that, let's get going. So, here is Shenanigans. This is a duo run that myself and Matt ran. Now, I've got half my talent tree, right? See my Fel Rushes? They're massive. They just go so far. And they deal 750% more damage, and I also have the Fel Mastery talents. Then my I-Beam. Its cooldown is 5 seconds during meta, and I-Beam has got a 60% chance to reset the cooldown of I-Beam, so just constant I-Beams. And also, by the way, I'm invincible during I-Beam. Pretty fun. Now, we had a few deaths in our run because of being silly, but for the most part, it was a cakewalk, right? It was just memes. It was ridiculous. Now look at this. This is the start of a new run, and notice how these mobs hit like a goddamn truck, and it's far more difficult. When Torghast is like this, it actually, to me, feels like a Kata Heroic, and I think that's awesome. Kata Heroics are they're one of my favorite times in the game, one of my favorite tuned bits of content in the game. I actually vastly prefer Kata Heroics to the gotta go fast gigapools and trash skips of Mythic Plus, as, they feel far more like, I'm in a hard dungeon in an RPG, a dangerous place. Not that I'm sitting down there with my gamer glasses, my G Fuel, my DX Racer, my esports jersey competing like a true gamer. So, what's the difference in the Shenanigans versus hard run that I said there? Well, right now it's because Torghast difficulty is odd. So the basic difficulty, right, that starts you off at level 1 of the tower. And that level is a cakewalk, but it still gives you loads of anima powers, okay? So by the time you hit like floor 20, you'll have 60 anima powers? You'll be an unstoppable god, like that crazy Demon Hunter build I told you about. It's a cakewalk. It's actually pretty fun just seeing these classes be busted and getting these novel effects, but it was more of a cakewalk. Like a Binding of Isaac run where everything just goes perfectly for you. Now, on the harder modes, right, you actually start off at the higher floors. Now that means you've got the enhanced difficulty of those higher floor mobs, but you got 0 anima powers. Now when that happens, the gameplay feels, as I said, far more like a Cataclysm Heroic. Pull 2 packs, you're gone. Miss a few interrupts, you're gone. And it kind of, to me, brought back the feeling of, just a clear memory I have from Stonecore, being an SV Hunter, dual CCing with Frost Trap and Wyvern Sting. Pretty cool stuff, but it was slow and methodical back in the day. Now, these are two entirely different styles of gameplay, and I actually love how both of them are housed within the same system. I think that's kind of gorgeous, actually. The Torments, though, they're soft and rage timers, and they barely matter on the easier mode. But on the harder mode, for a big floor, might take 20 minutes to clear that floor. Maybe even longer if it's a really big floor. And that's because you're taking your time. You know, you're wanting to go slow, you're wanting to use your CC, you're wanting to manage your cooldowns well. All of that stuff. So, these Torments, let's actually explain them. They are things like ambushers and hounds that attack you when you're out of combat. They can just sort of randomly spawn in. A stacking debuff that deals 1% of your health as damage every tick. One that reduces the damage you deal. One that increases the magic damage you take. One that increases the physical damage that you take as well. Now, on the developer notes that came with the most recent alpha build, it says, well, this. Much like how mythic dungeons have dangerous affixes at high levels, those who ascend the Torghast, or to the highest levels of Torghast, will have to endure the torments of the jailer. Now, what's really funny, right, is they drew that comparison to Mythic Plus in their initial post, but then in their follow-up blog post, after being criticized by players, they said, Torments shouldn't make Torghast feel like a fast-paced, time-constrained feature like Mythic Plus. So maybe just some wires are being crossed there, and certainly it feels time constrained, and I'll get into that in a bit. So that's all a bit strange. On Blizzard's post, right, it describes that these Torments, they stack up the longer you linger on a floor, and then they reset when you go to a new floor. Now, Wowhead's data mining has that being 60 seconds stacking time, so 20 minutes would equal, yeah, say 20% more physical damage taken, as an example. Now, in-game, it didn't always feel like that. Some of this stuff seemed to stack like one level as we went up floors within a given cell block, so I'm not really quite sure what was going on there. Yeah, so that's a little bit weird, but what I am going to go with, though, is Blizzard's actual statements, because I'm going to assume that that is their intent. So that's what's up there. Now, some of these feel like anti-AFK mechanics, right? The health loss every tick, the dogs that come in to bite you, they feel like an anti-AFK situation. But even at that, if you are slowly progressing through, through a floor at the bleeding edge of what you can do in your character, having a 20% per tick health loss, that's kind of going to suck. And that's especially if you're not decked out with anima powers. And you got to remember here, right? Torghast already punishes deaths. This is not a thing that is really needed that much. So it's not like it's easy, especially on those harder difficulties. It actually is really hard, and you can die. And it does punish those deaths. But before we really jump into it, we've got to talk about Blizz's response. So in the response, they say the Torments should prevent a certain type of gameplay. Blizzard think that one of the best things about Torghast is doing it at your own pace. And that is why they have decided to implement a soft and rage timer. Yep. Blizzard's problem-solving first mindset is that thing where it just sort of says, to hell with the consequences. That's kind of still in play here, in my opinion. Now, they say they do not want to make Torghast into a fast-paced, timed mode. I agree with them. And they say the Torments are there to add additional texture and, I quote, solve a problem that arises when extremely difficult content meets our often cooldown-based class design. Yes, someone could wait 20 minutes every pull for heroism. Someone could do that. So they have felt the need to solve this problem by punishing everyone else who's not going to do that because they're sane. Now, they're worried that, yes, people at the highest difficulty could just wait for all their cooldowns for every pull. Now, they say that that's not a fun way to play the game. I agree. But they also say it's the right way to play the game if you want to win. They say the Torments should apply just enough pressure so that a group can methodically clear a floor at their own pace, but without doing, trash skips because they feel like they need to because of the timer, while also making it so that waiting for cooldowns all the time is not a viable strategy. Now, they say the Torments are not meant to make Torghast feel like a fast-paced time trial bit of content like Horrific Visions, Mythic Plus, and Islands, preventing people from, say, taking a break when they want to, or, intimidating casual players from going near Torghast because of maybe the anxiety of a timer. Now, they asked for feedback, but they explicitly say, quote, the most valuable feedback for this feature will come from experience in Torghast, rather than discussions about time-based difficulty that aren't informed by in-game experience. So, That is basically saying, if you don't like this in principle, then we're not really interested in what you've got to say. Now, of course, I have played it, so I will get to that, but here's the thing, right? Many people actually don't like it in principle, and Blizzard, that's relevant to you. Personally, I believe this ties back to something that Blizzard struggles with, and that is, and I know this sounds harsh, a big lack of emotional intelligence. Blizzard has this problem, seriously. They suck at thinking about how things feel to players. Even if it's small and you're on an easier floor, to many players, the knowledge that there is a timer-ish mechanic that will impact them psychologically. And this is where I say, Blizzard, people are not spreadsheets. Just because the power curves do line up perfectly and you do get that Goldilocks zone, that doesn't mean that the content will exactly feel like that to play. It's the psychological angle. Now, the feedback they want is if people felt rushed when they didn't want to be rushed because of the torments, if people couldn't defeat levels because of the torments when playing regularly, if people didn't feel like they could, take a mid-run break, if torments, were appropriate, and if a torment felt underwhelming, so not really punishing enough. Now, what I would say here is actually really, really, really simple. Blizzard, just make exhaustion last for the duration of a floor. If some dumbass wants to wait for 5 minutes for Metamorphosis to come up every pull, let him do it. You see, there's already a timer in operation, and that's called my lifespan, your lifespan. And I get that's a bit of a joke, but you get my point here. If you're in a raid, right, and people are messing around and wasting time, and you're there trying to get after it, get it done, and you're dying for dumb reasons maybe, you're going to feel bad in that raid because you don't feel like your time is being well spent. So sure, 1% of players will get to the highest floor that they possibly can by waiting for every CD, right? So what? That's not a problem. From what I understand, getting your weekly legendary weapon resources is not something that, you'll need to do Torghast hard mode on. This is only going to be a problem for bleeding edge, hardcore players who just want crazy achievements and bragging rights faster than anyone else. Now, if that type of bleeding edge progression going as hard as you possibly can, if that is then part of the legendary material acquisition, so needed for your character, then Blizzard are making a massive design mistake with Torghast that will kill it. I want to do hardcore Torghast stuff, but it shouldn't be mandatory for getting the legendaries. Just do some basic Torghast for that. WoW has already suffered so much from this kind of mandatory design. We do not need that to happen again. Overall, this is a false problem. It is one that exists far more, hypothetically, in the minds of Blizzard designers. That's basically what's going on here. And look, right, I think that split runs and stuff like that is dumb, okay? But being real, if somebody wants to go do islands for 2 weeks straight for a few more Heart of Azeroth levels, I don't have sympathy for them. That's a stupid waste of time, right? The game should not be designed to counter that absolute outlier of players. I mean, I'd also say there's issues with the mandatory nature there, inherent in the AP system. I'm glad that's gone in the Shadowlands expansion, but you get my point. If we're designing this around this game, right, about having safeties against what the top 0.5% players do, to the point where the rest of the game is impacted, I mean, come on, do a cost-benefit analysis on that. It's not going to turn out well. You see, the thing is, right, that in the roguelite genre, one that I do quite enjoy, timers are quite often used, but they're used as a part of the game's design. Risk of Rain 1 and 2 is all about managing speedrunning versus like farming and being methodical, and your power balance versus, the mobs, right? Then Dead Cells, that's got a timer chest for fast players, but it's now got another chest that rewards methodical play. Isaac has some timer stuff as well, but not like this. Then you got games like Rogue Legacy that have less of that. All those games use timers for design benefits, right? A part of the game. They don't use those timers to solve problems as much. So Blizzard, if, Method wants to do some silly min-maxing of what's possible in Torghast because you made playing hardcore Torghast feel mandatory to progression, then in my view, you have failed to design the reward system of this expansion that well. So if that's not going to be a problem, and what Blizz basically said at BlizzCon, that like doing 2 to 3 Torghasts a week is really all you gotta do for your legendary stuff, and if you want to do other stuff, fair enough, but it's not going to be mandatory. So if that is the case, then what are you actually gaining by stopping that super hardcore play from 0.5%, 0.1% of the player base? I mean, personally, when I think about these sorts of design challenges, I think it's all about getting the maximum benefit with as little cost as possible. So the Torment system, it is massively heavy-handed, right? It is Blizzard problem solving with a sledgehammer instead of a scalpel, right? And that is something that they very often do. I mean, If you want to do the maximum benefit with the least impact to regular players possible, right, the least downside, just make exhaustion last for an entire floor. Job's a good one. Done. So, you know, that would be, you can use hero once per floor, or maybe 2 per floor if the shaman got their anima power, and that's it, right? You know, why do you have to put all of this design time into building what you view as a perfect self-balancing system that hits a perfect Goldilocks zone of not being too punishing but not being too lax? Why are you making it hard for yourself, Blizz? Seriously, you've got the rest of the game to design. Torghast is fun right now, so just limit this to once per floor, call it a day, take the rest of the day off work, have a beer, chill out, it's okay, we don't need to do this big system, right? Now, with that said, let's talk about the actual playing experience, because that is what they asked for. So, as a Demon Hunter on normal mode, I barely noticed it, because Demon Hunters are just OP. Matt, though, being an Elemental Shaman, did notice the percentage health ticking one a little bit more, though. Now, it was really just an annoyance for him, adding an extra button press here and there when he was just, you know, exploring the level. So, yeah, I mean, we're not players who would wait to lust every single pool or something like that, so I mean, while we weren't pissed off about it, it was just annoying, right? It was like, you know, a fly buzzing around your room. That kind of annoying. It was just like, ugh, why is this a thing? I mean, the same goes for the Kyrian, who would just come down to annoy you, right? Like, that was just annoying, right? Like, you know, I was there looking at my anima powers, doing my talents, after, you know, I was exploring the zone, and I just wanted to go smash some pots, you know, and these random dudes were just coming down, tampering with me for a second, and then leaving. And I'm like, what's this? I mean, I get it. If I was AFK waiting for Bloodlust to come back up, that might kill me, but I wasn't doing that. So it was just getting in the way of the rest of my Torghast experience. That is something that just, that doesn't seem to be their design goal with this, yet it is something that's happening with the system. So basically, on the normal mode, it barely matters. But on the harder modes, yeah, you're going to be clearing a floor for 20 minutes, right, for the larger ones. Now, why would you have a 20% physical damage taken increase at the end there when you're fighting the end boss? I mean, feel-wise, it is just like playing a Cataclysm Heroic, but with a debuff ticking up every minute. Why? You didn't do that in Cataclysm, why would you do it now? It's not fun for just the base case of playing Torghast. You know, again, it's just that problem of solving problems with a sledgehammer instead of a scalpel that seems to be something that the modern team does, and maybe something they didn't do as much in the past. I mean, feel-wise, that's what's up. If you're a regular player, you love Torghast, and, you know, you just want to push the limits of what you can do, so maybe that is just you doing that, but without taking the piss and waiting for lust, you know, before every pull, and you want to try a few strategies and stuff, then this would be really noticeable. And that's kind of the thing. It's really quite noticeable, and that does make it, therefore, a core part of Torghast's design, and therefore it changes how Torghast feels. And this is where I go back to saying, Blizzard, players' emotions don't fit on your spreadsheet. You keep on making this mistake. Yes, you know, you make it in different forms, but if you actually drill down to the why and the thinking apparatus of the team, it's the same thing. They think that people fit in spreadsheets, but they don't. When I was playing Torghast, this system did not hold me back, but it felt like there was a fly buzzing around my room, very slightly annoying me while I was playing. And if I can notice that, then it is a thing that you will notice in Torghast. And then, I mean, yeah, it obviously clearly impacts slower runs at harder difficulties. I mean, it took us over 5 years to get Titan Forging through them. Hopefully it doesn't take that long this time, because, I mean, oh man, like, the game already punishes you for death, right? That's the thing. You know, if you die like 8 times in a run, there you go. You're the tarot is going to come and, you know, deal with you. That's going to be it. There's already something here that kind of stops you at the high end. Why do we have to do this? Just make exhaustion last for the duration of the floor. It's so simple. You don't need to spend all this design time on this situation. So look, yeah, that's basically what's going on here. Finally, though, there are just some like raw notes from our play experience that I want to bring to you. So I'm actually just going to grab my phone and just kind of go through the notes, because I want to basically I want to show you this. I know this is very unprofessional, not really how you're supposed to talk to a camera, but basically I want to show it to you raw, so you kind of just get how we felt as we were as we were going through the situation. So look, we did notice some pros. Okay, so the pros I've got here are that it does incentivize risk taking, right? You know, that's a playstyle that you can want, so that's one. Then also it's a tuning knob, right? You can dial those up and down if you want to tune it differently. It's maybe a bit easier than tuning like the health pools and damage of mobs. And then it also gives a strong feeling of breakpoints, right? Where it's like you want to race to the next floor to wipe it out. And like maybe that would feel satisfying to people, so there's that. Then also, yeah, there's that it stops people doing that, what you would call a degenerate gameplay situation of waiting for bloodlust every time. So that is a pro of this, I suppose. And then also it like improves the power and the usability of speed mechanics in Torghast, because you're then racing against the clock. So, I mean, you're going to feel like that, even if it's not necessarily something you need to do. So that's going on. And then, yeah, it does also increase the fantasy of feeling, of being somewhere where you're not supposed to be. And that does match the design of the Maw zone. So in the Maw zone, like the jailer will just send guys after you basically till you die. So, yeah, it kind of matches that. However, let's hop over to our list of cons. So we've got that we felt it was purely punitive, right? Like, well, our note literally says, purely punitive, have they literally learned nothing from their history? And it's just that thing where Blizzard isn't really big into kind of rewarding the right way to play. They're more into punishing the bad way to play. But, their punishment is generally pretty broad strokes and kind of, I think, has unintended consequences. Then also we have that going fast actually makes you feel weaker because you'll have less anima if you hurry and skip through the hidden sources in a zone. Now, the counter to that, right, is you could just kill all the mobs in a zone as fast as you can and then go through the entire zone and, click in the anima and do all of that. But if you do that, I mean, you're just going to be running around and it's actually just going to make it feel a little bit more boring and worse paced. Then also we've got, if you die to a rare mob or a pack, you'll be weaker next time. Then our note says, in what world is that good design? Demon Souls did this. Remember Demon Souls right before Dark Souls? It did this, but that was a skill-based game. More of a skill-based game, like in being a Souls-like, basically. And then we also just have the note here clarifying that you're already punished for death in this. So it's the idea that, just in principle, right, you spend 15 minutes, okay? You've, getting to the final boss. Now you're taking 15% more physical damage, as an example. You die to that boss, okay? You respawn at the start. You then run back to the boss. Maybe it takes 2 minutes to run or a minute to run. Well, now you're just going to take another 1 or 2% damage. So it's that sort of thing where actually it will just compound your losses in a situation, if you're not the type of player who wants to wait on lust. And then you're at a situation where, well, this boss is just going to get harder and harder the more that we actually fail to kill it. And also we've got limited death. So in a way, it would actually encourage you thinking, well, Bloodlust will be available again in X amount of minutes. That will mean we'll maybe take 3 or 4% more physical damage, but we'll have Bloodlust, so we'll probably win. So there's actually a situation where this current design of this system, because it's on a per floor basis, actually encourages people to wait for Bloodlust. So that, I guess, I probably should have included that more at the top of this video, but yeah, it's kind of funny anyway, so there's that. Then there's another side here where, yes, incentivizing risk-taking is one type of design you can go for, but also that does make playing methodically feel worse because you are not incentivized to play methodically. You're incentivized to be a bit more risky and fast-ish, so that just sort of changes how it feels. We then also have that it completely shifts the balance to favor DPS classes. I think that's fairly obvious. We also think it removes a lot of the quality of life that Torghast offered by virtue of being different, and that's more that, once you just stop your character on a floor if you want to go talk to somebody or, do something, make a cup of tea, and you are midway through like a 20-minute long floor, say you're going really hard, well, you can't really do that now, right? Because if you go make that cup of tea, I mean, it depends how fast your kettle is, but it could be 3 minutes, right? And if it's 3 minutes, then maybe that's 3% more magic damage taken, and that's not going to feel good. And then as a miscellaneous point, we have here that Dead Cells offered a positive bonus for going fast initially, but then players felt frustrated because of that, because basically it felt like their only option was to skip through the level super quick. Now, it was intended to be balanced so that the rewards for combat and exploration were kind of similar in strength, but only one of them was properly rewarded at the start. And that is then what later led the Dead Cells developers to making, there was like a speed chest at the end of a level, but then there was also a kill X mobs without taking a hit, which is a methodical play reward chest. So you can kind of basically, you can get one of them. And that means that no matter what type your core playstyle is, there will be something you can do that is, is rewarding your skill. So there you go. That's our thoughts. I would love to know what your thoughts are. I will probably do some sort of poll down below. So, I mean, yeah, I think this is maybe something we'll take a little bit more time on to do like a more proper poll at some point. But I just like to know what TLDR, you know, are you guys thinking in a positive or a negative direction about this? Just to, you know, get a temperature of it, I suppose. So, yeah, there's that. But this is definitely something I want to do a proper feedback doc on. So, that's what's going on. If you want that cool art for this, you know, concept that we've worked on, maybe deduce what it actually is, then hey, it's on the Patreon, as well as pins. I mean, come on, it's a metal pin. It's really, really cool. You can look at it, shine it in the light, put it places, really fun, and all the rest of the art. That's on Patreon. It's a great way to support our team, and I think what we like there is, you know, yeah, you're supporting us, but we also like that you're getting something in return for that, and that there's some value that's actually going back to you. So that's what's up there. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think about this feature and Torghast in general. And with that, I'll see you next time.